Here we are in Zagreb again in our studio. Stay positive, stay your own. Don't allow this time, don't allow any bad news spoil your well-being. Yesterday's and today's speakers have taken out their time in order to give us new knowledge, new insights in the area of communication. Communications are all around us, and the importance of communication in public administration and public companies is very important, especially in these areas where we live in. All of you who are employed in public administration are in the function of the citizens. Therefore, the transparency is the key of success. Therefore, today again, we speak again on the importance of communication of our focus conference, which is organized jointly by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation and the Institute for Communication of Southeastern Europe. With me in the studio is the director of the foundation for Croatia and Slovenia, Mr. Holger Hajbach, and I'm giving my word to him now.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Mr. Koletic. It's a great honor for all of us to have the second day of our conference, and for the interest of the next speaker, I'm going to switch to German now.
Yeah.
Ich freue mich sehr, dass wir heute Morgen mit Jürgen Banzer einen profilierten deutschen Politiker begrüßen können, der über eine langjährige Erfahrung im öffentlichen Leben verfügt und neben anderen vielen guten Eigenschaften mein ehemaliger Chef ist. Er war anderthalb Jahrzehnte Landrat des
my colleague Jürgen Banzer. He is the vice president of the CDU Representatives Club in the provincial parliament of the German federal state in Hessen. He also worked partly in Croatia. After that, he was 3 times a minister in the Federal Republic of Hessen, once for legal affairs and the second time for social affairs. And altogether, for many decades, he spent his time in public life, and I can be very proud that everything I know I learned from Jürgen Banzer.
Ich weiß, dass du auch heute als stellvertretender Fraktionsvorsitzender der Landtagsfraktion in Hessen sehr viel zu tun hast. Und deswegen freue ich mich umso mehr, dass du die Zeit genommen hast, uns ein bisschen über deine Erfahrungen in der Kommunikation von öffentlicher Verwaltung zu erzählen. Und ich würde dann ohne größere Vorrede einfach dich bitten, das Wort zu ergreifen.
Herzlichen Dank für diese sehr freundliche Begrüßung.
Thank you so much, Holger, for this very warm welcome. I'm not sure if everything is correct and true, but I like to hear it. Communication is something that we can hear very often. In the life of a politician, it's something obligatory, something we are not very fond of when we hear it. But actually, communication is the main task of each and every politician. Of course, we all know that at the end, communication has to happen in order to be elected. But allow me to say that communication is necessary in order to rule, to lead. I believe that the reliable access to people, to decision makers, to those who have to make decisions is of utmost importance. My experience is very good in the field that the communication with every department and every man who is competent, to give him half an hour every week or every fortnight or every 4 weeks to talk to these people. And that is what I told them, to keep this habit up, to have time for them. And this is an element you can build up a leading structure, even for a larger administration system. It is possible to organize it. And of course, when communicating and talking to people, it is important to have feedback and that also those people talk to other people. And if you succeed in doing so, then the organization of such feedbacks and that communication is part of your management task, human management, human resources management, because it is, in second step, it is important that those people you talk to do that again and organize things according to what you have communicated. Then it is possible for that leader to make sure to know your organization, to know your administration department, and to keep it up, to keep it working and functioning. I think for every leader, it is an important precondition in order to complete your task to find a time in advance where you can talk to your manager or to your people, because it is important for him at that moment to be there and to be listened to. And that reliability that someone will be there in that moment, which keeps an administration up, because it is bad to have the impression that someone is not listening and someone is not informed. No, through such time plans, you construct a grid of communication, and then it is important to transport every and each piece of information to everybody. Also, every recommendation or complaint, whatever. Everything's fine. Please continue. So that reliable information system is really good. Once I understood it to be something like a time plan in class, a quite complicated structure actually, but it works. And that was really a bunch of tasks, but it was implementable. It is very useful in politics. As well as you keep up in contact with everybody regarding the pandemics, you can do it with any task, with any planning. You can put in and keep up your communication with hospitals, with headquarters, with everybody, but you need a very good communication grid, a communication system. And if and when it works well, it is a good instrument for the decision makers. It is important for them, because if you do it that way, there will not be any situation you are not informed of. You have created a structure in advance to collect the pieces of information which are necessary and important in order that you can make your decisions. And through these feedbacks, you can take care of these pieces of information you get through the feedback and forward it to any place necessary. On the other hand, it is important that the leaders in these communication hours are there, that they are reliable, that they listen to you. Of course, they have to read the memos, the emails you send to them, and during that communication process, they have to take stand regarding to what they have read. That is the way to make the most complicated decisions. I only can recommend such a system. And it leads to another step, which is the external communication. It is as successful as the internal if you do it that way. The only thing you have to take care of is to have such a grid in your PR or your external communication, but please do not make any difference between the journalists. You have to take care as well of the ones which do not seem as pleasant to you as some others. There are always journalists who are easier to handle than some others who are not that easier, but you have to treat them all equally. Just to give priority to a certain newspaper or a journal is not good. That isn't good PR. You have to provide clear information to everybody and have to be prepared to carry that information offensively to the journalists. I can remember my time when I worked in the regional government. We had problem with asbestos material our schools were covered with. And there were certain analyses, certain studies and investigations, and we had to report about that and tell the journalists what happened. And I can remember one day before the direct elections, I presided one of our big meetings in my electoral region, and there were around 500 journalists and people, and we had to be honest to tell them what really happened, that there was asbestos. And our election results were brilliant. Why? Because the people, as well as the journalists, had the impression that there wasn't a politician who was just telling stories to them. No, he was capable of taking the stand and providing proper information to them, what had happened, even though it wasn't pleasant. But I also provided solutions at the same time. And that was definitely brave, but the brave paid off. We profited all of that later. What we need to give our people, our nation, is the feeling that they get proper information, honest information, not information with makeup, with cosmetics on top. Thank you.
Ergänzung zu dem, was wir gestern schon gehört haben, nämlich, dass es auf der einen Seite darauf ankommt, intern zu kommunizieren, gerade in größeren Verwaltungen, damit alle auch tatsächlich am Ende mit einer Stimme sprechen und alle die Entscheidungen verstehen, die auch von der Leitung getroffen werden. Und auf der anderen Seite es eben auch darauf ankommt, nach außen zu kommunizieren und das glaubwürdig und glaubhaft zu machen. Und das scheint mir eine wichtige Voraussetzung zu sein, wie du eben gerade so schön gesagt hast. Glaubwürdigkeit ist, glaube ich, das größte Gut, was man als Politiker hat. Und ohne dieses Gut der Glaubwürdigkeit wird man kaum vernünftig kommunizieren können. Also vielen Dank. Es hat mich sehr gefreut, dass du dir die Zeit genommen hast. Und schöne Grüße nach Oberursel und alles Gute weiterhin, bleibt gesund.
Wird mir alle Mühe geben. Danke.
Alles klar. So, back to Mr. Koletic and we'll see each other soon.
Danke vielmals, Mr. Bencer. Evo, hvala najljepše, gospodin Bencer, što ste izdvojili vrijeme i bili dio današnje
and for sharing with us at the Focus Conference. Now let us look at who has given support to the Focus Conference. Here we are again in the Focus studio at our Focus conference. Stay positive and be with us. I believe that communication in public administration and public companies is a topic that we should talk about very much. We must understand that behind every communication message there are individuals and experts working in the PR and communication in public administration. Unfortunately, the standards of communication of politicians are oftentimes not the same in our region. Therefore, only gathered together on the same platform we can give importance to the professionalism and the importance of education. We are going to our next presenter. I'm very honored to have with us the Prime Minister of the Herzegovina-Neretva County, who is speaking directly from Mostar. Mr. Nevenko Herceg is a lecturer on several universities and political academies. He has published more than 100 scientific and technical papers in domestic and international journals. He is an editor of a larger number of conference proceedings, monographs, and newspapers. He has published 7 university books. Today, he is the Prime Minister of the Herzegovina-Neretva County, and he will stress the key messages about the importance of transparency in the area of public relations. Do we hear each other? Good morning from Mostar, from sunny Herzegovina. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, participants of the conference, I am honored to be able to speak to you today and greet you in the name of the government of our county, within the scope of this prestigious Focus conference, as you said in your introduction, about the innovation and communication in public administration. Keeping in mind the time I have at my disposal, I will try to focus on the most important messages, and my short presentation will give a concept of my thinking and my views on this topic, because as a scientist and university lecturer, my field is a bit different, but as a practitioner, as a politician, I'm involved in communicating with the public, and in political communication I decided to use the methodology of scientific work and share with you as my target audience the experience of work and everyday political communication. I have briefly elaborated the following 3 hypotheses. Political relations are more and more important in daily political activities. Secondly, a especially important part are relations with the media. And thirdly, the role of the first man of the organization during the crisis is mostly seen through the relationship with the public. Knowing that this is a very broad and complex subject, I decided to focus on the key elements and to stress the most intensive period of communication, and this is what happens in times of crisis. This is because we are also passing through a major crisis, the pandemic, which we have faced without any previous preparation, without any previous experience in the March of this year. and it was necessary to respond and react in a proper manner to this crisis. Therefore, I will focus on the area of lockdown, which was between the 17th of March and the 5th of May this year. So who were the key actors of the communication with the public? Who were the key players in this process? From the leading theoreticians of this area, my narrow field of work is the area of government as a political actor in the field of public communication. It is important that this communication is continuous. Whatever act, law, decision you make, whether it is of internal or of external nature, you must communicate it to the public. And being led by this guiding thought, along with the question of who communicates, it is important to dissect and analyze all the segments of this communication. Knowing that we will speak about communication with the media is one of the most important aspects of communication with the public, we will focus on internal communication. My experience tells me that in politics, and I have been in public life for 30 years, the very content that we communicate must be clear and precise and agreed. So first of all, it must be communicated within the House. Some of the key moves of our government of the Herzegovina-Neretva County in managing the crisis, we set up a team for crisis management, we made a crisis plan, and we set up a crisis communication team. Every day we communicated all new information, we were proactive, and we were filling the communication void. To us, the crisis was not what happened, but what people think that happened. How should we acknowledge the crisis? How should we manage the crisis? And how should we communicate during the crisis? If somebody had illusions that you can neglect the communication aspect, I think that this unfortunate crisis, this unfortunate pandemic has completely proved him wrong. Speaking on behalf of our government of the Herzegovina-Neretva County, I believe that we were responsible and that we abided to all the rules of the profession. Our stress was on proactive communication, with the stress on proactive communication, which I will talk about in the second part of my presentation. In the time of crisis, the time for a reception of information drastically falls, and at the same time the need for information grows, which creates a great communication challenge. The role of the first man of the organization is very important in order to synthesize all the processes of communication. During all this time, I believe that our communication channels operated in a timely and efficient manner. To conclude my first part, the communication with the public must be a kind of coalition within the government and they have a significant contribution to the, with regard to the dignity of the organization. I have allowed myself to share with you some thoughts while respecting the time. I instruct you to see and hear the presentation, which I believe will be productive and interesting to you. I wish you a productive work and goodbye. Thank you, Mr. Nevenko Herceg. What we have heard, what is very important, are two key messages from this presentation. The first one is that the importance of communication and its role and position depends on the first man in the organization. And the second thing is that Prime Minister Herceg has stressed is the great dedication to internal communication. That is all the employees in the public administration. Oftentimes it is difficult to motivate them, but believe me, if one day you solve at least one case, you solved somebody's problem, somebody's challenge, maybe even you saved somebody's life. Therefore, all the employees in public administration, public companies, they must have daily internal communication, irrespective of their personal relationships, because they are responsible to the citizens. Every employee does not represent only himself. He represents the institution where he works, he represents the county and the state. Stay positive and look together with me advertisements of all those who offered us their support.
Dobrodošli ponovo u Focus Studio.
Welcome again
Dobar
into
dan
the
svima
Focus
onima
Studio.
koji su se ovog trenutka
Good morning, everybody who has joined us at this moment. This is the sixth edition of Focus Conference about innovation and communication in public administration and public companies. Our motto is closer to the people. I'm very happy because only this morning I realized the amount of time and energy that we invested in the preparation. I thank all the presenters and all those who accepted our invitation. The conference is organized together with the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, who is supporting us
Nakon
this year as well.
Mostara selimo
After
se u
Mostar,
Žalec.
we are going
Za
to
one koji
Žalec,
ne znaju,
Slovenia.
mogu malo i
For
pogooglati,
those
ali
who
grad
don't know,
Žalec je
they can look it up
grad
on
u
Google.
Republici Slovenije.
It is a town in the
za
Republic
nekoliko
of Slovenia,
trenutaka
and in a
treba
few
sa nama
moments
biti
we
gradonačelnik
expect to have with us the
gospodin
mayor,
Janko Kos.
Mr.
Ne znam da li je
Janko
on
Kos.
već u eteru.
I don't know whether we have him on the line.
Evo, dobar dan, gospodine
Good morning,
Kos,
Mr.
i
Kos.
dobrodošli na Focus
Welcome to the
konferenciju.
Focus
Evo
Conference.
kratki uvod, Janko Kos je
Just a brief
gradonačelnik, kao
introduction.
što sam
Janko
rekao,
Kos is a
grada
mayor
Žalca.
of the town of
Karijeru je
Žalec.
započeo u
He started
tvrtci
his career in the
Žalec,
company Hmezad
Hmezad Žalec,
Hmezad
oprostite,
Žalec.
zatim je više od 10
After
godina
that,
bio
more than
zaposlen
10 years,
na raznim
he was
menadžerskim
employed in
rukovodećim
various
mjestima
managerial
u
and
Triglavu.
key positions
Sudjeluje
in
u raznim
Triglav
odborima i povjerenstvima općini
security.
Republici.
He's active in various
Dobio je
committees in
nekoliko
the
prestižnih nagrada
municipality
i
and the
priznanja
Republic
za
of
svoj
Slovenia.
rad
He
na
won several
različitim
awards for his
područjima.
successful work.
Inače, Žalec, usudio bi se
Žalec,
reći,
I
sasvim
would
lijepo,
dare to say,
životom puno ispunjeno
is a town
slovensko mjesto.
full of life,
Postalo je
a beautiful
prije
Slovenian
nekoliko godina
place,
pravi
and
hit.
a few years back became
Kako je
a real
postalo?
hit.
Zašto i
How
kako
did
je
it manage to
gradonačelnik sa
become
svojim
a hit,
suradnicima
and how did
brendirao
the
grad
mayor
Žalac? Imat ćete
brand
čuti priliku u
Žalec
njegovom
together with his
izlaganju.
co-workers?
Pa,
We
izvolite,
expect to hear
gospodin
this
Kos,
from Mr. Kos.
online prostor je vaš.
The online space is yours. First of all, I wish to greet all the participants of the conference. I'm glad that I'm able to take part in the conference and to present my project of the Fountain of Beer, which has placed Žalec on the world map. In the presentation of this project, I will be assisted by my colleague, Dr. Hanna Schuster-Erjavec. Greetings to Hanna. Good morning, welcome. This only shows once again how important it is to have a team, because no mayor, no politician is able to succeed unless he has a good team. So it is important to communicate, to value the work of all the co-works in the public sector, because they are the key to success.
Da li je Hanna spremna sa
Is Hanna
prezentacijom?
ready with her presentation?
Za nekoliko trenutaka ćete vidjeti na vašim
In a couple of
ekranima
moments you will see on your screens the presentation. Hanna was the leader of the project of the beer fountain, so she's the real person to present it. Congratulations to Hanna Schuster-Erjavec.
Sada samo podijelite još prezentaciju na cijelom ekranu.
So we have your presentation on the screen and we can start.
Inače za vas koji
Just for you
niste bili
who have
u
not
Žalcu,
been in Žalec,
vrijeme je da ga posjetite.
it is time for you to
čim prva
visit it
prilika
on the
dođe
first
ili da
available
zastanete,
occasion.
da
At least
uživate
stop for a
u
moment,
najvećem izboru
enjoy
piva u
the
Sloveniji, da
biggest
si date
choice of
oduška,
beers in Slovenia.
jer, nakon korone više ništa
After
neće biti isto.
the corona crisis,
Jednostavno,
nothing will ever be
svi
the
smo
same,
željni,
and we are
polako
all
i dobre
eager
zabave i dobrog
to get
opuštanja.
some good entertainment and good
Dozvolite
relaxation.
nikome da poruke
Don't
koje
allow
kruže u
anybody
eteru,
to
stvaraju psihozu,
create
ne
any
dozvolite
kind of
nikome
psychosis
da
in you.
unište onu pozitivnu energiju
Don't
stvaranja
let your
koju
positive
svi
energy
imamo u sebi i
dissipate,
jednostavno budite svoji.
be
Kao što
yourselves.
smo mi
just as we try to be ourselves on the Focus Conference. And behind this conference there is a whole team of people who has been working diligently in the past 60 days. Especially I would like to stress that we have new websites which was created by the company CodeVision. We had to make new websites because the old ones were only in Croatian. Now we have in English also. And with this 6th edition, the focus has jumped into new shoes. Dr. Hanna, we don't see your presentation on the screen.
I will just start talking.
Ja ću početi govoriti. Fontana piva je turistički proizvod koji je pozicionirao Žalec na globalnoj turističkoj mapi. I pitanje zašto Fontana piva? To su me pitali kad smo imali jednu preskonferenciju. Novinar iz BBC-a me je nazvao i pitao me kako to da Žalec, taj mali grad od 5000 ljudi. Hanna, excuse me, I would propose that we give the advertisement spots until we resolve your camera issue because we want to have your slides.
Pogledajte reklamnu poruku naših partnera. Evo nas ponovo iz Focus
Here we
Studia.
are again in the Focus studio.
Pošto je u Sloveniji lockdown,
Unfortunately, due to the lockdown in Slovenia,
internetske veze,
they seem to have cut the internet connections. We are expecting Mr. Janko Kos and Mrs. Hanna from the town of Žalec, who should give us a presentation on the topic of vision that has positioned the city of Žalec. The city of Žalec is a winner of this year ProPR City Award, which will be given on the 4th of July in the Četvrtek Spa. We continue. What are we talking about when we say communication in public companies and public administration? In the forthcoming period, we will have to consider very seriously the broadening of the capacities linked to the management
na digitalnim sučeljima.
On digital interfaces.
Imamo različite ciljne javnosti.
We have various target audiences, we are aware of that, and not all of them are digitally literate. This is a major challenge because on one side, the states, counties, towns want to be friendlier, they want everything speaks in favor of online communication, but not all the citizens are literate enough to be able to know in what way they can join in that communication. I also wish to turn your attention to the directive, on web accessibility for all those who are obliged by law, who are obliged to adapt their web interfaces, and until the September of next year, everybody who is on the budget is obliged to assure web accessibility to people with disabilities. When exactly we will do that, it is difficult to assess because the numbers that will be presented in Croatia on the 3rd of September will be very bad numbers. Those who are in the position to decide had enough time, but they have not considered this issue. So all of you who are not parts of the European Union at the moment, you can join this initiative because sometimes if there is not a perception of the persons with disabilities, then we are not aware of what it means to them. On one hand, we want to be e-government, we want to be digitally accessible, and on the other hand, we did not give the opportunity, we did not treat all our citizens equally on the part of the public administration. So please take into account the accessibility for persons with disabilities. I don't know whether we are still in connection with the town of Žalec. We are waiting for them to come through.
U svakom slučaju ovo je 6. izdanje Focus konferencije.
In any case, this is the 6th issue of the Focus conference. We have been in Belgrade last year, and next year we look forward to the live conference in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia and Slovenia. Our motto is closer to the people. Yesterday and today we will have a total of 17 presenters. What is the importance of this conference? We wish to come nearer to all those involved with communication in public administration. I see that we have Žalec on the line. Please, Hanna, go on. Dobar dan još jednom, imali smo manje probleme. Dakle, kad smo lansirali našu fontanu piva, to je jedan zaista inovativni turistički proizvod koji je pozicionirao Žalec na svjetskoj turističkoj karti. Mi smo lansirali ovaj proizvod jer je on vezan uz hmelj. Kad me novinar iz BBC-a pitao zašto fontana piva u gradu od 5000 ljudi, zašto takva hrabra inovacija? Žalec je 5. po proizvodnji hmelja u svijetu. 90% našeg hmelja se izvozi i za nas je bilo prirodno da učinimo nešto sa ovom pozadinom. Naša fontana piva se zove Green Gold i ona je prva te vrste u svijetu. Što nas čini tako jedinstvenim? To su 4 stavke. Prvo, sam koncept točenja piva. Drugo je veza sa pričom o tome kako je to nastalo. Priča je uvijek važna. Treće, imamo jedinstvenu arhitekturu i samu tehnologiju. Arhitektura, ako pogledate iz ptičje perspektive, možete vidjeti da je ova fontana dizajnirana kao uzgajalište hmelja. Dakle, vi ju vidite kao mjesto gdje raste hmelj. Tehnologija je također jedinstvena. Tehničko rješenje nam omogućava da pivo se automatski toči, ono automatski pokazuje sve vremenske uvjete i ima malo mistike u tome, jer posjetitelj ne može vidjeti sve, ali može kušati sve vrste piva. Svako pivo ima slovenski hmelj i različite vrste i količine hmelja. Uz ove fontane postavili smo i ploče na kojima su informacije relevantne za naša piva. Vjerovatno najatraktivnije je način na koji se pivo toči. Morate koristiti jedan inteligentan vrč. On je programiran na 6 puta 1 decilitar. Taj vrč, ta čaša ima svoju memoriju, svoj memorijski čip i ona vam omogućava da 6 puta kušate različita piva u količini od 1 decilitar. To nam je dizajnirao počasni građanin Žalesa, Oskar Kogoj, koji je svjetski poznati industrijski dizajner. Imali smo naravno probleme u realizaciji svega ovog. Kao prvo, bio je veliki otpor od strane dijela javnosti. Oni su rekli da općina mora graditi ceste, vodovod, mostove, ali ne turistički proizvod. Međutim, mi smo htjeli to, jer za nas ova fontana je također turistička infrastruktura, jer sa ovom fontanom turisti dolaze u Žalec, idu u restorane, kupuju suvenire, ostaju preko noći i to je značajan prihod za nas. Tako da smo riješili ovaj problem dobivajući novac od donatora. Otprilike 50% novca je došlo, 400.000 eura je dobiveno od donacija. Dobili smo i nagradu za najinovativniju turističku ideju od strane slovenske turističke organizacije i na našoj prvoj preskonferenciji kad smo lansirali ovu fontanu mi smo dobili visoku vidljivost, visok medijski doseg. Najvažnija stvar je ta da je PR kojeg je napravio naš gradonačelnik, gospodin Janko Kos, od samog početka je vjerovao u našu ideju, podržavao našu ideju i on je bio njezin najveći promotor. Također, on je promovirao i Žalec kao grad. Ovdje sam navela neke od citata koje smo dobili u dobro poznatim publikacijama koji su nam pomogli da izgradimo našu PR komunikaciju i koji također i PR za grad Žalec. Mi smo se u prvo vrijeme smijali na to, ali dobivši ovoliki publicitet, turisti su se zainteresirali za našu ideju, počeli su dolaziti i posjećivali su Žalec. Veliko otvorenje je bilo 21. travnja 2016. Mnoge medijske kuće su bile na tom događaju, neke internacionalne također, i mi smo prodali u 2 mjeseca preko 36.000 ovih čaša, dočim prvobitni plan je bio 6.000 na godinu, tako da smo postigli 6 puta veći učinak u samo 2 mjeseca. Ovo je slika naše fontane, naravno prije koronavirusa. Evo, ovako je to izgledalo. Usprkos kiši, ljudi su došli sa busevima, ljudi su htjeli vidjeti tu atrakciju i sada imamo...
Our vision is that fountain is the flagship of tourism in Žalec and beyond. And really the most important is the public relation that we done, especially at the beginning, but also nowadays. Marketing tools like advertising are also now important. Joint communications, like we make some cooperations with other tourist providers. We do a lot of digital marketing. It also helps that we promote tourism in the municipality, for example, with some competitions. Automne Floral Europe is such a competition, international. We won gold medal. And of course, this helped us with visibility of Žalec, with the visibility of beer fountain. And some prizes we won for the fountain. I already mentioned Snovalec for the best innovative idea. And then we got Sejalec for the most innovative tourist product in Slovenia. And of course, word of mouth, because in these 5 seasons, we have sold more than 200,000 mugs. And all these customers, satisfied customers, tell this tell this to others and attract visitors. So this is our beer fountain, and I can say Let meet by the fountain. This is our slogan. You can see on the right, this is our ambassador, Tadej Tosh. Every year we choose one ambassador, very known celebrity. And on the left is our mayor, Jan Kokos. So let's say cheers, and we are inviting you to the beer fountain.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Mr. Kos. Let us see you once again. You have shared with us this innovative story. Cheers. You have heard the invitation to visit Žalec. I sincerely thank you for taking your time and for solving our technical challenges, and we hope to see you soon in Žalec.
Ostanimo pozitivni i evo za sve koji ste se ovog trenutka uključili, dobrodošli na šesti
To all who have joined us right now, welcome to the 6th edition of the Focus Conference on Communication in Public Administration. We are going back to Slovenia. Our next presenter is from the Ministry of Administration of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Tadej Gabriel. He is secretary in the Department for Information Society of his ministry. He is active in various domestic and international projects, and he is a member of several groups like OECD, European Commission, in the field of digitalization. The Republic of Slovenia, I am allowed to say, is a leader in the region in this field, as we heard yesterday from their minister. And today we will hear something from the operative angle. Please, Mr. Tadej, do we hear each other? Everything is fine. Please take the word. Good morning, everybody. I will continue in English because my Croatian is not so good.
It is an honor for me to be able to share our experiences with key e-government services. As announced before, yesterday our Minister Boštjan Koritnik had a lecture here where he stressed the importance of digital communication with citizens and businesses. The goal is not digitalization itself. At the same time, we need to optimize the processes and bring value to a wider circle of stakeholders. As an effect, we expect high usefulness and actual use, and also indirectly higher relevance and trust. Our minister also explicitly mentioned our this year's achievement, electronic sick leave, as a proof on how we can use collaboration and optimization in practice to bring value to all the participating stakeholders. Let me share my presentation. I hope it is showing. It is a fact that in these times of COVID-19, the efficient digital channels are literally saving lives. Less need for physical contacts and less painful isolation. Digital channels of Slovenian public administration are offering possibilities for digital interaction with the users in the field of e-taxes, e-health, pension and health insurance and others. We have various specialized portals where users can find information and services. I will show you 5 examples of our electronic services for citizens, the ideas and concepts behind, and the experiences that we gained in this regard. You may already know about the functionalities of our e-government portal, about the user experience, and accessibility features, underlying building blocks, and integration with data sources. These functionalities are growing and adapting together with the growing use and with the needs of service providers and service users. I will not go into details about that. The first is related to the residents. During the first wave of pandemic, it was not allowed for us to travel outside of our domestic municipalities. At the same time, it was impossible to officially change the address in person because administrative units were mainly closed for physical visitors. So if people wanted to legalize the place where they actually lived and not get in trouble with the police, they had to register their actual residence by digital channels. But the digital divide was too big for those who didn't yet have their digital identities. And it was impossible to get new digital identity at that time because the offices were closed. So we decided to temporarily lower the security of those services. We also offered those services without the need of authentication and without pre-filling the forms with basic registry data. And it was quite successful. The number of users grew significantly. 2/3 of applications were sent without digital identity. We were happy because our portal attracted more visitors and users. But the back office workers had more work because they had to double check such non-signed applications. Positive side effect was higher data quality because people were now motivated to report their actual address. Now, we are also observing high numbers in the second wave. Currently, the applications without digital identity are not available because administrative units now are available for urgent cases. So now you can get your new digital identity even in this second wave if you need it, but you must first get your free time slot at the administrative unit so you don't experience some waiting lines. Next interesting case that I want to show you is government financial help for students. In these difficult times, also students have problems with surviving and losing their temporary jobs. So the government offered students 150 euros of financial help, but they had to apply. The only channel to apply was our e-government portal. They had to tell their personal data, their study data and banking account where they wanted the money. Also, in this case, it was possible to send the application also without the digital identity. And the deadlines, they were short. As expected, the interest of the students was high. In practice, most of them tried to apply already on the first day, majority without the use of digital identity. As you might expect, such uneven traffic caused some problems for us, for our servers and systems, which at that time were not prepared for such peaks. Well, now they are. It was painful when several students experienced difficulties on the first day while trying to access the service, but that was fixed already the next day, and now we are all better prepared for such shocks. The third case is also somehow special. We managed to automate producing the certificates of impunity. You know, that document that says that you have no criminal record. Before it was automated, all that was digital was the front end. Users had the possibility to digitally request it, but the whole process behind was analog. So the benefits were very limited for the service providers, and the response times were also quite slow for the service users. After we automated the production of vast majority of the outputs for the persons without the criminal record, the satisfaction substantially improved. The results are now in PDF format, electronically sealed and delivered into safe personal space of the user inside the e-government portal. And it is used in practice, even more after we introduced the possibility to apply without digital identity. The point is, bring value for both the service user and service provider. That enables motivation, scalability, and also economic sustainability. The fourth case is the application for subsidized transport ticket. Unfortunately, it is a sad truth that in this moment, public transport is stopped. So this service is temporarily less relevant. But what is important is that we managed to include the stakeholders in the process of co-creation. Together with the Ministry of Infrastructure, end users and bus companies, we developed a digitalized service that helps all parties. Before, a student had to get the paper certificate confirming that he is enrolled in education, bring it to the bus company where he then could buy the yearly or monthly transport ticket. Often he had to wait in long lines of other students all wanting to do the same. Now, there is no need for paper certificates and for long lines. After digitally applying, eligibility is verified by checking in the student's database and other sources. The confirmation is delivered electronically into safe personal space of the user, who can then also electronically buy the ticket at the carrier's site. The whole process is fast and efficient and is a good case of co-creation. The last service that I would like to highlight is our newest application for the home quarantine certificate. You can use this service if you are in a close contact with an infected person and you need a proof to be able to stay at home and not go to work, where you could endanger your coworkers. Sadly, in last weeks, our health workers are overburdened, and we don't want them to do more administration than absolutely necessary, since they are needed for more urgent tasks. So now, if you need a proof to stay at home, you can use this digital service on e-government portal with or without digital identity, enter the date and type of your contact with the infected person, and receive the certificate either by mail or into your safe personal space inside e-government portal. Responsible institution for issuing the certificates is our National Institute for Public Health. The service was developed very quickly, in a week, and the numbers show that it is also a useful service. In the first 2 weeks, 8,567 certificates were issued, almost all of them without the use of digital identity. So, looking at this, we can agree that digitalization has a huge potential if it is done right. It is very important that we don't only digitalize, but above all, optimize and collaborate with users and other stakeholders. Obviously, efficient digital identity and electronic delivery of documents are quite important and common key enablers necessary for full and efficient digitalization. In our ministry, we are just now in the process of developing the Digital Government Review of Slovenia together with the OECD, collaborating also with other public institutions and stakeholders. The concepts that OECD is using are quite clear and refreshing. For example, their definition of digital government in relation to e-government. Digital also includes much more influence of the user, and they have more and more control. And we also have more optimizations with digital government. Co-creation, concept which in these times could also be difficult to follow. But digital tools and digital channels can help us. And we can assume that these new forms of co-working supported by digital will stay even after the pandemic, because they can be very efficient and effective. The users of today are increasingly mobile and digital. They know their rights and want to be heard. We as the governments need to listen and to understand them and to follow their needs so we can maintain their trust. Right now, we are not very good with this trust. We are, in fact, the last between the OECD members. So the trust of our citizens is very low, and we want to improve that. Also by going closer to them, by using digital channels, by earning their trust. So by using digital tools and communication channels, we can stay close to users. We can be flexible and agile and produce relevant, reliable, and sustainable solutions. Let's hope we make it. Thank you for your attention.
Zahvaljujem se gospodinu Tadeju Gabrielu.
Thank you, Mr. Tadej Gabriel. You have heard very innovative ideas and concepts in the Republic of Slovenia. And now please allow me to invite you again to see a spot showing the partners of this year's conference, and later we go to Trikvenica. Thank you.
Pozdravljam vas ponovo iz Focus studija ovdje u
Allow me to
Zagrebu.
welcome again from our
Svi oni
Focus
koji su
studio
se
in Zagreb.
sada
To all
uključili,
of you who have
ići
just
ćemo
joined in,
u Crikvenicu.
let me
Inače,
take
za
you
ovogodišnju
to
konferenciju
Crikvenica.
imamo
As far as the this year's
256
conference is
osobe
concerned, we have
prijavljene, no
256
kako
persons
statistike govore, ljudi prate konferenciju,
who attended the conference.
uključuju se, tako da je tako
But
primjer i kod
people
nas.
keep coming and
Možda je u
going.
posljednje
That is the
vrijeme
same thing
i
we do
previše
now.
konferencija na različitim
Maybe
temama, ali
there were
samo
too
jedna
many
jedina
conferences
fokus
on
konferencija
different
o javnoj
topics, but there
upravi,
is only one
i
focus
komunikacijama i
conference
inovacijama na
with
tom
the
području.
topic on public
Ivona
administration and
Matušić-Gašparović svoju
communication.
poslovnu karijeru započela je
Ivona
kao
Matušić-Gašparović
stažist u Uredu
started
zastupnika
in the
Europskog
European
parlamenta
Parliament
u Briselu i tamo je
in
bila upravo na pravom
Brussels,
mjestu kako bi
and
dobila
that
širu sliku
was the right
koju
spot for her
danas
to work to
prenosi
get
u gradu Crikvenici
the
gdje je
proper
započela svoju karijeru
picture of the
2014.
entire
godine upravo
story.
kao
She
viša
started
stručna
in
saradnica za
Crikvenica
odnose
to
s
build up
javnošću,
her career in
a danas postaje
2014
zamjenica
as a higher
gradonačelnika grada
assistant for public
Crikvenice.
relations, and in
Na ovoj funkciji
2017
je
she
upravo prava
became
osoba
the
i ako
deputy
netko
mayor
dolazi
of the
iz
city
sektora
of
odnosa s
Crikvenica.
javnošću,
She's in
onda on
charge
zna
of finances and social affairs.
zašto su odnosi
In
s
her
javnošću,
presentation,
kako
she
su oni
will
važni.
present to us
Inače,
digital
gospođa
communication of the city of Crikvenica.
Matušić-Gašparović zadužena
Miss
je za
Matušić-Gašparović
društvene djelatnosti i financije.
is
Pa evo,
keeping in
uključimo se
contact
u
with
Crikvenicu.
the
Dobar
citizens
dan,
of
Ivona.
Crikvenica. Hello, Crikvenica. Hello, Ivona. Hello, Daniel, to you and all your collaborators and colleagues here with us. Allow me to congratulate you that you have found the strength to organize the Focus Conference under such circumstances, because the Focus Conference means a lot to all of us. Especially that is a way to find out many important information and also to represent our city and to talk about ideas and wishes. Thank you. Thanks to our support, this year's conference is being held. And now the time is yours.
Evo ga, nadam se da vidite.
I hope you can see my presentation.
Evo ovako, ono o čemu ću danas govoriti je
What I want to talk about is the digital transformation and the digital communication of the city of Crikvenica and the local self-government. The local principles you have to deal with and respect in the city government, which at the end leads to digital transformations, are three key factors: transparency, accessibility, and two-way communication. We have to face the facts as they are, because it is a fact that in 2018 we developed a study where Croatia was on place 22 regarding communication in administration in comparison to other EU countries. That tells us that we have a lot to do. During the last few years, the public administration and the regional administration, we all work a lot on digital transformation. It is accessible, but there's still a lot to be done. When talking about transparency, two segments are very important. One, definitely transparency of the budget, and the other is the transparency in the work of the city government. We, as the city of Crikvenica, like to say that we're proud of our financial budget because we present it in a very transparent way, and we are at the top because the assessments and the grades we get are very good. What we do is that we hold counseling meetings with the public. That is what we offer our citizens. We do not offer them just a budget, no. When we choose certain acts of the budget or any other legal acts, we write down the idea why we have taken certain decision and what is our goal. And we want our citizens to understand what we do, to understand our vision, and to tell us what they think. We like them to be included in passing our decisions. We organize every year a public meeting with the topic of budget, and then we also introduce questionnaire on the budget. I shall tell you more about it later when I will be talking about two-way communication. In Croatia, ladies and gentlemen, many communities and municipalities have done a lot regarding digital communication transparency. One positive side or one positive situation that is a result of the COVID pandemic is that it has awakened in us this need and this urge for digital communication. And today, almost everybody has accepted it as a very good and straightforward way of communicating. In Crkvenica, we know that because it is fast, it is accessible, and we're keeping up with the trends. Something else I would like to emphasize as a special feature is our e-office, where any of our citizens can check at any time where a certain decision is, at what stage it is, or if he has forwarded or submitted a certain document or an application, he can follow up with it, he can monitor it and know at what stage it is. Everything is very accessible and very transparent here. There is also online payments possible. Doesn't matter what you want to pay, you can pay it online. There is a social calculator, we call it as a platform. All our citizens, in line with the social criteria, can find out what benefits they can enjoy with just a few clicks, and also it says how they can achieve it. Something new we shall start in 2021 is the SONG application. With this application, we would like to initiate the transparency of the city administration, and not only the city administration, but also all sports institutions, sports halls in Crkvenica. And you can check everything, starting from the number of members in a sports association, the membership fee, their program, their education, and so on. That is definitely a very high level of transparency. When talking about the accessibility of data, I can say that this accessibility has been raised up to a very desirable level. And we are accessible through our website, which are reliable and adapted to all legal requirements. With only a few clicks, you can find the information you're looking for. There are also social networks. We are at Facebook and Instagram we're using for some events and to share the photographs of a beautiful city, while Facebook is a service network. And we can say that we have several publications, several pieces of information we share almost every day, and we almost instantly reply to the questions and to the comments of our citizens. Many people are moderating or are the administrators of Facebook. So if one can't be online at one moment, another one is. So there is almost someone there to write a reply to the users. We do not rely on Facebook only, but also on everything website and other networks. As far as accessibility is concerned, the GIS information system is quite important. Other cities use it as well through their different spatial data and spatial plans. Something we are different with is that in our GIS portal, we do not offer only data on the cadastre plots, on the data spatial plans, city plans. No, we're offering much more than that. Via our GIS system, you can find the restaurants in the city of Crikvenac, you can find parks, promenades along the coast. Then also we're introducing the different projects. For example, we had one event that was Plant My Tree, where citizens could plant their own tree they received before as a gift. But that platform allows also two-way communication, which is of utmost importance. To all of us working for the city government, it is so important to hear what our citizen thinks, and that is the city eye, as we call it. Our citizens feel that they can do something for their city. It's a mobile application called the City Eye, where they can just make a photo and send us what they have seen, what is wrong, for example, a broken bench, a broken traffic sign, and so on. So they shoot a photo, send it to us, and they can also monitor and follow up how fast it is being mended or repaired. Two-way communication is definitely important for us to be properly informed. We want to awaken the interest in our citizens to be more present in policy making of the city. We want to motivate them, and we want to know what they need and what they wish for. But the problem is always how to find a channel to get to the citizens and to find out what they think. Because first they have to be interested in a certain topic. So we have to take care of the target groups. Of course, not every group.
Nisi pokriven, sve rušiš, nemoj me, nerviraš me. Evo čujemo neke još dodatne glasove, pa možda da malo zastanemo. Ako ići u dućan, normalno da si vidio nego kažeš mi donio nešto. A nećeš ići nigdje pod milim Bogom, sve se može. Ok, evo mislim da je sada u redu.
Now it's fine, I didn't hear anything. So forms of two-way communication have to be adopted to the channel through which we communicate to our citizens, with the type and the way how this information is introduced. There's public meetings and any events, certain level events are very good. Most often older people are attending such meetings, but who we need is also the younger population, because we need to find out what they want. So we came up with two more innovative ways of communication. One of them are questionnaires. So through surveys, through our networks, we introduce surveys. And when we were preparing our city budget, we tried to include our citizens via that survey on the website. So every citizen who decided to fill in that survey was first reading our messages, but also provided feedback to us. There were only 3 questions. The first question covered 20 projects we intend to implement through the next years. And we wanted our citizens to choose the projects which they want us to work on and tell us what they do not want. And they just had to click on yes or no, choose first and yes or no. Then out of these 20 same projects, we wanted them to choose the one for which they believe to be the most important for them. And the third questions, we left enough space for them to write and to suggest what projects they would like us to make or to work on. Something they believe we might have forgotten or we might have not suggested, but they believe to be very important for them. And that was so successful, I can't tell you. More than 700 of our citizens filled in that survey. Most of the people were young, and we were very surprised with the result. After the young people read the survey and filled it up, they wanted to know more. They asked questions. They took really a good viewpoint, and the result was that the channel of communication through social networks was really very good, a very good decision, because we got plenty of answers we can work with. Something else we found out through the survey is the quality of life. We aimed to communicate with certain groups, with target groups, and beside the questions, how are you satisfied with the situation in the city, with the services, not only with those who are in touch with the city administration or who know what we do, no, we included them wider because we wanted to find out more about their problems, and it is something that the citizens support. And besides the information in the feedback, we got also very interesting data. The citizens of Crikvenica are very happy with the quality of life because they find it very good or brilliant even. Something else I wanted to say at the end is something new, an innovation. So according to my knowledge, we're the only one who have that. This is a Viber application of our public utility company. We developed it with a company from Rijeka. It was presented on the Smart City conference in Barcelona. What we wanted to achieve with this application is to provide our citizens with the possibility to communicate with us, with this mannequin here, his name is Maro, to get any piece of information they need. For example, a parking lot, how to pay an annual parking ticket or a monthly parking ticket, weekly parking ticket, where are free parking spots, where to throw your garbage and so on. And here are all the questions mostly asked to the public utility service. We also made great efforts with the PR. We developed it together with schools. The pupils, the students, for example, named that mannequin. That is our virtual public utility worker. His name is Maro. So besides being very modern, very accessible, providing many pieces of information in a very short time, it can be further developed. So what we like to do to provide data, for example, which events we're organizing in Crikvenica. It doesn't matter if it's cultural or something else. Just information the visitors, and as well as the visitors and our citizens need. And everything would be here accessible on one Viber application. So far from me on the digital communication of the city of Crikvenica. Wow, this is quite impressive. Thank you, Ivona. Thanks to you and to your associates. You're trying very hard and doing very good, and you're keeping in touch with the citizens, and this is really a great and very positive example. Other cities can follow you easily. I believe that you and your associates are on disposal if somebody from another city or municipality wants to implement that. Yes, of course, there is our contact data, and I'm on disposal. So, goodbye to Crikvenica. Thank you for your support. Before going to Brussels, let's see a jingle.
Evo nas ponovo u Focus Studiju ovdje u Zagrebu.
Here we are again in the Focus Studio.
Što će sa nama biti
to have with us Mr. Vincenzo Levoci, who is the General Secretary of the Venice Club. This is a network of directors of communication from member states and institutions of the European Union. He has been working for 28 years for the General Secretariat of the Council of the EU, and since 2001 he works in Directorate General for Communications, where he is responsible for the issues of transparency and information politics. I had the pleasure to get to know Vincenzo personally, and I'm always impressed by his positive energy, by his dynamics, by his patience and understanding. I also had the honor to be last year participant at the panel of Venice Club, and believe me, Vincenzo must have very good nerves to understand all these people from the EU involved with communications, because all these people are different. So I am now connecting myself to Brussels, and I am giving a word to Vincenzo. Please go on.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And, I'm honored to be joining you today, and many thanks to you and also to the other organizers, in particular our foundation, which is a very good partner within the framework of cooperation between the Club of Venice and other international organizations. And I would like also to mention in this case also CECOM, because the Southeastern Europe Communication Association is also another strong partner from your regions. And welcome and thank you to all as a distinguished panelists, because since yesterday you have brought a lot of food for thought, and I believe that we have plenty of opportunity for reflecting on key issues for communicators. There's a wide variety of interventions with a high profile, and it's a I would stress the perfect complementarity and the interrelation among the different contributions. And thanks also to the interpreters for their patience. My profile, you said something, but very briefly, I would like to remind you that I've been working for the Council of the EU since 1992, and in DG COM in particular since 2001. But before that, I was also in the NATO for 7 years, working for the U.S. Air Force, for the American U.S. Air Force. Then today I am in the field of transparency, but half of my time was spent in transparency and half in communication. So I've seen a lot, I've shared a lot, and I'm still passionate about this. I was in particular very happy to hear from Tina Sornazzi yesterday from the Commission. She works in Stratcom, and we shared a lot, and we still continue to exchange best practice and about the initiatives which are coordinated by the European Commission. The information campaigns that explain what is the EU added value, and the ongoing consultation with the other institutions of the EU and the member states with regard to the handling of the pandemic in particular, and what will be the framework in terms of MFF negotiations. You've heard from her about what is in the pipeline, because the MFF will include the big effort of the EU and the member states with regard to the financial commitments to facilitate recovery in terms of health and economy. I will speak briefly about the communication in progress in the formal context within the institutions, of course, and also on the activities of the Club of Venice, which is basically an informal network of communication directors from the EU member states, also from the countries which are negotiating the accession to the EU and the EU institutions. The objective of this network is, which operates since 1986, is to exchange information and best practice and develop a cooperation in the field of communication. The governance is ensured by a steering group of 8 communication directors on a voluntary basis, and by myself. And I will tell you briefly later what are the topics covered and how. what I would like to say is that, I'm also very pleased with the excellent presentation given by the Slovenian Minister Koritnik yesterday and by Tadej Gabriel on the impressive progress that has been made by their country in the digital communication. It is fully comprehensible to notice how they are proud of these achievements and also in perspective what is going to happen, what they hope. Slovenia was, let me say, the first of the new countries who entered the Union, which with the new wave in 2004, that hosted a plenary meeting of the Club of Venice in Ljubljana in 2008. In the field of communication, I would say that everything can be done, but if it's done coherently, if it's done together and timely, in order to meet citizens' expectations, this is our main aim. There is a very short story, very interesting to know for you concerning what happened years ago, because since the mandate of the Commission in 2004 with Madame Wallström, who is now who was the Commissioner for Communication, and today is Minister of Foreign Affairs in Sweden. Following as you know, the failure of the referendum on the constitutional treaty of the EU in France and in the Netherlands, there was a long period of reflection for the EU to see the future, to build a future, and to see how we could recover basically trust in the citizens and better explain the EU's added value. Which meant that there was a lot of work to be done to reach out to the citizens, understand their expectations, establish connections with the civil society, the media, and of course it was a moment to think about something different. And there was a mechanism that was created in 2008, which was called Communicating Europe in Partnership. There was a special declaration that was signed by the three institutions, and based on that, the member states were basically entering a new stage of cooperation with the institutions to work in communication. How? Actually, exceptionally, instead of being the Commission to handle the funds, basically as usual in all the different policies, the funds were given back to the member states, a certain amount of money. We were talking at that stage of 10, 11 million euros to be spent and spread all over the different countries who would be able to establish partnership agreements in bilateral with the Commission. We contributed to this. There was a lot of progress, but at the same time in 2013, when we had a new commissioner, Commissioner Reding, this process has stopped. And we are still trying to work together with the other institutions to understand in which terms there may be some better and more powerful forms of cooperation, which could help everyone to better communicate in the field of Europe. Now, having said that, communication is dynamic, but at the same time, we need to understand that communication has not a specific reference in the treaties. This is an handicap, but at the same time, we all know that as communicators, communication is a kind of a virtual policy which embraces all the other different policies. It's a transversal issue. So the governments and the institutions must find the way to reinforce the cooperation and act coherently when communicating about Europe. So what this implies is that there needs to be an investment in everything we do. We need to be competent enough as communicators, and then we can do everything, because the picture is quite wide. We have a lot of issues on which communication applies in the institutions. Let me list briefly. Anti-terrorism. We had the 9/11 issues. We had a communication strategy which was started in 2006. We have now a counterterrorism coordinator for the EU. This was created. This role was created in 2004, and now it's still handled in the Council by Mr. De Kerchove. So we have initiatives with regard to the platforms which enables to reinforce connections and exchange data. We have a radicalization awareness network, which is basically a powerful instrument to increase cooperation. We have a communication on climate change. We had a strong involvement on the institutions in the co-participation in UN conferences in the climate, in particular in Copenhagen and in France. We had the 2015 European Year on Development with a lot of good cooperation spirit, where the Commission created a special website where all the member states were able to inject some information about what they were doing in these respective fields. We had the economic crisis, of course, with a lot of increased effort in terms of communication to explain what the European Council was doing when it was time to summon all the heads of states with an incredible rhythm of meetings compared to the usual meetings. We had communication on the European elections. There was a lot of effort done by the European Parliament to reinforce the cooperative approach and the outreach towards the citizens before the elections. We had communication in the field of migration. There is a lot going on, as you know, and that there is a special mechanism that has been created a few years ago, which is called the IPCR, the Integrated Political Crisis Response. It's coordinated by the Council and by the Presidency of the Council, the semester presidency. And it deals with all the different crises. But of course, migration and now the pandemic are taking the major role in the discussions. The IPCR is activated, this mechanism, every time there is a special crisis, no matter what type of policy. So institutions are quite active. And there is a lot of effort concerning countering disinformation, as you know, because it all started with a high-level expert group coordinated by the Commission 3 years ago. It went on and on with the creation of an action plan on disinformation. We have the European External Action Service involved in the with its Stratcom forces to counter disinformation with the help of the different national authorities. So the picture is quite wide. I'm trying to summarize, and let me briefly say that what is happening in institutions is perfectly acting in complementarity with what we do in informal context, because communication, again, is a common challenge and a common duty. When speaking about crisis communication, we must act together for a common objective. And we need to insist, of course, on exchanging the best communication strategic models, insist on talking about also ethics, webcom, the involvement in social network, but behind this, we need to be enough competent and be ready to accept the fact that we need to enhance our competence, enhance our skills, get involved in the training, because only by that we can compete and we can be just in line with what you named as a main theme of the focus. It's communication and innovation. So this is what I would stress. I can also mention that we have adopted in the last 3 years within the Club of Venice 3 charters and 1 action plan concerning communication, strategic communication, resilience to disinformation, countering propaganda, and in particular also the relations between public communicators and the media sector. Everything is in evolution. We are, of course, ready to share as much as we can, plenty of information, and increase cooperation with several international organizations. The OECD was mentioned in the previous contributions. We are doing a lot with the OECD, who recently published the result of surveys that have been handled with a lot of countries beyond Europe as well. And they will be joining us also next week. We will have our new plenary meeting. It will be online, unfortunately, as you know, and we will discuss in particular crisis communication on pandemia, but also on the other topics which are just affecting the EU. And we will also discuss one important issue, which I think that implicitly and also sometimes directly have been touched by my previous colleagues who have contributed to your conference, which is the impact of the crisis, the different crises on public diplomacy, country branding, and reputation management. So there's a lot in the pipeline, and we are sure that with a lot of goodwill, and in particular with continuous competence and seriousness in what we're doing, we will achieve our objectives. Thank you so much.
Gospodin Lavoci je govorio izravno. Mr. Lavoci has been speaking directly from Brussels. He has stressed the continuous education in the sectors of public administration. I thank you very much, Vincenzo Lavoci. We will have a block of advertisements.
Ostanite pozitivni I svi
Stay
koji
positive,
ste
ladies
sa
and
nama
gentlemen.
na
All of you who are
šestom
with us
izdanju
today at the
konferencije
6th
o
Focus Conference
komunikacijama
on
I inovacijama u
Communication
javnoj
and
upravi,
Innovation in
koji
Public
ste se sada uključili, sve
Administration,
vas
who have
srdačno
joined
pozdravljam.
us. Allow me to
Velika
welcome
mi je
you.
čast što
I'm
mogu
truly
najaviti
honored to
osobu koja je
introduce to you a
pionir
person who is the
komunikacijskih
pioneer of
strategija,
communication
pionir odnosa s
strategies,
javnošću
a
u
pioneer
javnom
in
upravi,
public
javnom
relations
sektoru.
in the
Erik den
public
Hoed,
sector. His
još
name
od
is Erik den Hoed.
1984.
Since
godine radi za vladu
1984, he's
Nizozemske
working
na
for the
brojnim
government in the
upravljačkim
Netherlands
funkcijama, a
on
od
many management functions.
2010. godine
And since
direktor je Ureda za
2010,
javno
he is the
informiranje I
director of the
komunikaciju u
public
Nizozemskoj.
communications and
Danas će
information
govoriti
service
o ključnim
of the
točkama
government of the Netherlands.
transparentnosti
Today
u
she'll speak about the key
komunikaciji.
points of transparency
Erik,
in communication.
online pozornica je
Eric,
vaša.
the
Hvala
floor,
najljepše
online
što
floor
ste
is
se odazvali
yours.
mom
Thank you
pozivu.
so
Jako
much
sam sretan I
for
zadovoljan
joining
što ste prihvatili
us.
moj
I'm
poziv.
very
Evo,
happy
izvolite.
to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you. It's an honor to me. It's great to see you. I've good memories of the last time I saw you in person. It was in Venice, and we had a splendid meal, and my great friend Vincenzo was there too. It's always good to see you. My experience is that all people involved in communication are all very nice and open people. And these 10 years I'm working in this field, I have very good memories of the Club of Venice, but also of CCOM, the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. It's very great. So it's really an honor to be here, and compliments for you for organizing this. I will be very brief. I will be talking about the importance of transparency, which is very, very important. And I provided some sheets, and I will try to start them now. So let's see if it works. If it's good, is it visible, Daniel, now?
Yet, but we will waiting. Pričekat ćemo, nije još vidljivo.
We shall wait. I can't see it yet.
I'll try once more.
dok se ne riješi uključenje prezentacije. Još jednom da ponovim, ovo je 6. izdanje Fokus konferencije. Fokus konferencija je jedina regionalna fokusirana edukacijska platforma na teme koje govore o komunikaciji i inovacijama u javnoj upravi i javnim tvrtkama. Brojni stručnjaci na ovom području marljivo rade kreirajući imidž ne samo političara, političkih stranki, već komuniciraju svakodnevno, stvaraju projekte i nove vrijednosti da bi građani na kvalitetniji način mogli živjeti i biti dio suživota u državi ili gradu ili zajednici u kojoj djeluju. U sljedeće 2021. radujem se fokus konferencijama uživo, ali nove tehnologije promijenile su nas, mijenjaju naše živote. Međutim, unatoč tome mi moramo nastojati naći vremena jedni za druge kada za to dođe vrijeme. Ne dozvolite različitim komunikacijskim porukama u eteru da skrenu vaše misli i da razmišljate u smjeru straha, jer vi ste lideri na svojim područjima koji morate ostati pozitivni, morate brinuti o drugima i vaše komunikacijske poruke moraju biti pozitivne. Zato je naravno potreban fokus vlastitog uma, ali i fokus strpljenja. Erik, možda možeš održati i govor ako nemaš prezentaciju.
Yes, I tried again, but it's... Yes, I can do it. I send it to you people, so maybe when you can, but I can do it without. Yes, I will use my sheets, but I will tell you. Okay. Well, I want to talk about the importance of transparency, and sometimes people look to ask me transparency why. When you look all over the world, there's not a lot of transparency in government communication, I think. And sometimes people think that it's not good to be transparent, because this shouldn't be something for the people to understand completely how government works and what our intentions are and so on. But I always say, why not being transparent? And I think it's completely simple to see why. Something to consider, for example. It's clear that governments can lie, of course, and governments lie a lot, I think, but they can never hide the truth in the end. It's my conviction that in the end, because there are so many people involved in decision making, a government can't hide in the truth in the end. That's the first thing to consider. And another one is to consider that government communication is never about the self-evident. It's always about conflicting interests, dilemmas, change, and so on. So we all should know that it's a complex matter. So there is always room for disinformation, misinformation, complex theories, and so on. What we are dealing with is a very, very complex matter. And if it's something is very complex, there's the only thing you can do is to be transparent about it. Don't hide it. Don't say just to the people, well, it's a complex matter. I only tell you what's important. We think that is important to you. You have to deal with it and so on. No, I think while it's complex, it's very important to be transparent. And the third thing, government communication should build on trust. And I say it over and over again, all these 10 years I've said is trust in our modern democracies is vital for us. Our governments, our societies are not held together by laws or by finance and so on. Our societies are held together by trust from citizens in each other's, by citizens in the government, and the trust of government in its citizens. We are built on trust. And there are three major components that build trust for a government. And the first one is performance. Do you perform as a government? When you build railways or hospitals and so on, are they good for the people? Yeah. Do you deliver? That's very important. If you don't deliver, people don't trust you. When you go to a dentist and he makes a hell of a job of it and makes a disaster from your mouth, you won't trust him the next time. And the second one important for trust is that the integrity of a government, that there is no corruption, that people can trust your good intentions, that you show that you are transparent about what you do. If you are not an integer government, people won't trust you. And the third component of trust is attention. You should pay attention to people. The tone of voice should be right for every situation. We see that nowadays with the COVID, for example. It's very important how our government leaders, our politicians, our scientists, how they communicate with the people. So have attention. Well, and in a democracy, transparency is vitally important for building and keeping trust. We can't do without transparency. So you can ask transparency why. I will answer why not. I will say, well, it's needed. You can't do without transparency in a modern society. And we see this in the Netherlands. What we have, and I strongly advise every country to and every company to have it. We made principles for government communication. We did it some 25 years ago, and it's still, and some 5-6 years ago, we tried to revise it again, but we ended up that they were still absolutely actual. They were still good. And I want to go over these principles of government communication in the Netherlands. There are only 4 or 5 of them, but when I read them, it's unfortunately I can't show it, but you have my presentation, so everybody can have it have it later on. Because when I read it, you should know that there is transparency everywhere. Well, the first one of these principles is recognizable and for the sake of. And it goes as follows. Government communications will always be recognizable as such, relate to policy and organization, and not be aimed at the personal image building of members of government and of other government communications. So we should be very clear what is government communication about. Yeah? We should be clear, we should be transparent about this. The second one is actively and with clear intentions. The government will actively bring its policy and the reasons and considerations underlying it to the attention of the widest possible audience, and will always specify the policy phase to which the information relates. At an early stage, it will be indicated whether the government wishes to involve citizens in the preparation of plans and measures, and if so, then how. This last point is very important. At an early stage, it will be indicated whether the government wishes to involve citizens in the preparation of plans and measures, and if so, then how. The other side is, if we don't want to involve citizens because it's very technical and so, we should also say that. So we should always be very clear what to expect from our citizens. We should be transparent about this. So this second principle is, I think, very, very important. The third one is we should be accessible, quick, and adequate. The government will ensure that it can be easily contacted by the citizens. Furthermore, the government will respond quickly and adequately to requests for information and to complaints. Communication will be truthful, sufficiently accessible, both in terms of technology and content, understandable, timely, and as focused as possible. So we should be truthful, sufficiently accessible, transparent. We should always be transparent. And the last one, it are only a few principles, but there is a whole world behind that. There's a whole world of thinking behind that and of feeling behind that, of conviction about how important it is. The last one is sound. Central government communication will never become interwoven with party political interests. And that I know that in some areas of the world, this is not always the case. But we feel in the northwestern part of Europe that this is very, very important, that is vital, that there's a strict distinction between government on the one hand and political parties on the other hand. We always should see that. So I really recommend for every country and for every company to have these kinds of principles. And I know that nowadays most countries have them. But then I ask, are they still vivid? Do you discuss them many times with each other? In the Netherlands, we have a communication council. I'm part of that, and it is made up of all directors of communication of all the ministries. Every 2-3 months, we discuss these principles by cases. If there is a case, if there's something in the news, then we discuss. Were we correct? Were we following our principles? So we are very active on this. Well, let's turn me to transparency in COVID communication, because that's also very, very important. And we can say when we are transparent in the Netherlands from the government in Corona COVID communication, we are very transparent on what is going on and why does it matter. And this seems very obvious, but don't take it for granted. From our position, you can think, well, everybody knows what is going on and everybody knows why it matters. But that's not the case. This in communication is a step that is often overlooked by communicators, just telling the people on and on again what is going on in the world, in our country, and why does it matter? Be very transparent about it. And then the key thing is be transparent about what we know and don't know. It's unfortunately I can't show you these slides, but our Prime Minister, Mr. Rutte, who is a great communicator, when the epidemic the pandemic started, he addressed the Dutch population from his office. And this is something that is done not very often. The last time was 25 years ago. And he addressed all the people, and the people afterwards, they were very enthusiastic about what he told. And why was this? Mainly because he was so strong about what we did not know. And he said, in this time, we have to make 100% of our decisions on only 50% knowledge of the facts. And people didn't understand that. And we still benefit from that approach in March. And it was all the time, it was this way, that we communicate, our politicians, they communicate what they know and what they don't know. And we are very transparent about what the government will do. What position we will take. And this is also very often overlooked. Because a government, when it comes to communication, information, can take different positions. A government can take a neutral position. A government can take the position to just inform people. But in this case, the position is different. Of course, we want to inform people, but we want also to the people to change their behavior, to do something that we can stop this pandemic. So we should be clear about it, but about our objectives, because when we are not clear about it, people don't trust us. People think, what are they doing? They try to just give information, but they want something from us. So always be clear about what we want from people and what actions we want. And also be very transparent that in the end, the power of the government is very, very limited. And we see that now, not only in our country, but in many countries. We have, at the moment, we have the same measures, almost the same measures as we had in the start, in March and April. So we don't have a complete lockdown. We call it an intelligent lockdown. That is our arrogance, of course, of the Dutch, that we have an intelligent lockdown. Other people don't have an intelligent lockdown. That's of course bullshit. But also, this is how we do. But the measures are almost the same as they were in March. But we see that people, they don't act the same as in March. In March, everybody complied. Nearly everybody complied. When we asked them to work at home, 70% of 80% of the people who can work from home, they work from home. We asked them now the same, but now only 30% of the people who can work from home work from home. So you can. So it's really dependent of what your citizens want to do, what they are willing to do, and your measures as a government are, in my opinion, very, very limited. What you can do. Yes, you can harm the economy a lot, but towards your citizens, that is only a little what to do. So it's very important that you show your companies, your institutions, and your citizens what they can do. And be clear about them. In the Netherlands, we had, of course, like in all countries, we have these campaigns, and the slogan for our campaign is that only together we can get Corona under control. So we really ask the people to help us only together. And we give them very good concrete measures what they can do. And also very important is that we should be completely transparent on how we account ourselves. The coming days, we will upload on our website, the websites of my office, we will upload 800,000 documents. 800,000 documents, all dealing about decision making, what we did in Corona. So that everybody, every citizen can read what we did, what were our considerations, why did we do A and did not do B, and so on. And why is this so important? Because we see such a lot of misinformation and disinformation going on. And I think, and this is my firm conviction, and in the past we made a lot of mistakes with disinformation. I think we went on the internet, and when we saw something that was in our opinion not correct, and we told as a government, it's not correct what you're saying, it's not correct what you're thinking. And of course that was not very productive. People don't like that, and they are right that they don't like this. So what we do now, and this works very well. So if we see groups on the internet, in Facebook or other, that they have this conspiracy theories and so on, we go there, but then we say, we see that you are interested in this topic. Go to this place, and we show them the links to our website. You can find more information about this. So what is vital, and we are very transparent about this, that our citizens can make their own mind up. Always. We only help them with information, but it's up to them to use this. So I think this is very, very important. And the last thing, and now I'm finishing, is that I think that we all are also very, very transparent on how we deal with opposition. In the beginning of the Corona communication, I think that we made a big mistake with the youth. We closed the schools, the universities, and so on. And we thought, well, what's the problem? These young people, they can have their education online and so on. And of course they can. But we didn't notice how very important it is for young people to meet, to speak to one each other, and so on. Because all this decision making is done by people like me. White old men thinking what's best for society and so on. And of course we were completely wrong. And during summer and after summer, we noticed that there was a lot of opposition, especially amongst the young. And one day we were confronted with an action by some influencers who were, and there was one, she was called, it was a young lady, she was called Femke Louise, and she has more than 1 million followers, and that's a lot. And she said, it's all bullshit, this corona, it's killing us, it's killing society, we don't cooperate anymore. And it was a big action going on. We don't cooperate anymore. And then and that's very important too, we don't only use politicians, but we also use the experts. And experts are, of course, more trusted people than politicians. Well, this Femke Louise, she was invited in a TV show. And she said, well, there's a lot of misinformation about COVID. It's not dangerous. People don't die. We are locked up in our houses. We don't want to do this. We don't cooperate anymore. And one moment it looked like a great deal of the youth population of the Netherlands will like to follow her. But what we did, she was invited to a TV show, and there was also a very well-respected doctor from the intensive care. And what he did, and it was great what he did, he said, you are right. You are not right in what you're saying that it's not a dangerous illness, but you're right that we had not the good attention to the young people. We misunderstood the big problems you have. But let's work together. I invite you to my hospital and see how we work very hard to keep the people alive and so on. And she did. And of course, what happened was that she saw this and she completely changed her tone of voice. And she said, I was wrong. I was wrong. Thank you. And she thanked the person, the doctor. Thank you for showing this. And then she completely changed. And she said, it's very important to all the young people to contribute and so on. So he was, and we were, the same goes for our ministry, our prime minister, and also the minister of health. They were completely transparent about that they misjudged the situation for the young people. And now we have them on our sides once more. So I conclude with transparency is vital. It's vital for trust, and trust is vital for democracy. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Zahvaljujem evo Eriku Den
Thank
Hudu.
you,
Sa nama je
Erik
bio
Den Hoed.
direktor Ureda za
That
javno
was the
informiranje i
director of the
komunikaciju
Public Communications and Information Service of the government of the Netherlands. You have heard what is so important. It is so important to keep up transparency and trust, and that is something you can build up with good communication. Thank you very much, Erik. The next presentation is waiting for us. Please stay with us and let's have a look who has supported this year's Focus Conference.
Evo ide naša najava našeg sljedećeg
I wish to announce our next speaker. This is the Deputy Mayor of the city of Split, Mrs. Jelena Hrgović-Tomaš, who is speaking to us from sunny Split. I greet you all from the sunny Split, you have said right. So you can go on with your presentation. I was given the task to speak about the external and internal communication in public administration. I wish to greet all the other presenters and you as organizers who have obliged us to speak about our experience in the last 3.5 years. I have been in this function for this period, but my prior experience was 10 years in publishing and culture, and of course it was linked to communication. And this has helped me prepare myself. It has given me some techniques of communication, but I found public administration specific on the other hand, and in spite of all my preparation, I found myself in the need of further learning. This is a view of the Split Harbor, and in the context of our today's presentation, let me go to the main issue. What is the communication, the formal legal communication? Therefore, I give you the front page of the official gazette of the city of Split. This is a formal gazette who does not serve what we are talking about today. It is adapted to communicated, it is directed communication. The official gazette publishes formal acts of the administration, and it uses legal language. It publishes all the documents adopted by the city council or the mayor. On the right hand is the picture of this modern communication by means of the web page of the city of Split, where in an adapted way the content is communicated towards the public. Communication, as I said, can be internal or external. In modern times, we speak of adapted news, news translated into a language understandable by all, because the legal language is not so accessible. And these 3.5 years that I've been here, I have seen the drawback that we have in our system. That is that all the people who are participating in the city administration, like the mayor, his deputies, members of the council, or administrative employees, they should all have a serious education, perhaps using the French model, where you have a 1-year study education which is done along with your work, where you master the tools of modern communication. Because we have seen that you need it irrespective of your previous experience, especially if you are addicted to legal language, you cannot do serious work in public administration. This is the scheme, the structure of business communication. Of course, verbal communication is number one. Then we have the non-verbal, or I call it B communication. The verbal communication, especially in public administration, is divided into oral communication and written communication. Speaking about oral communication, I wish to lay stress on the phenomenon that we see, which is the basic dress code, but also feelings, enthusiasm, which is related to speaking and active listening. And this is what we see as a kind of good behavior, which shows dedication to the job. And this often lacks in our administrative system, because the employees, there is no investment, there is very little investment in the education of employees, especially in the segment of interface towards the citizens, towards those who make up the city. So this non-verbal communication is important to achieve the final effect and to achieve the final goal, and this is the enable the citizens to access and realize all their rights and all the services that they are entitled to access. Nowadays, there is a lot of written communication, internet communication. There are people who wish to communicate with us only through the e-service, and we have very few bodies which manage to develop the e-services and to remain within the domain of e-communication as an official communication. After 3.5 years, I can testify that people are addressing us daily, whether addressing the mayor or his deputies or employees of the administration with serious questions. And these serious questions concern the life in the city, and we must have an answer to this question. If somebody doesn't have the answer, he must proceed the question to the person who knows the answer. But the minimum of courtesy is to say, we receive your mail and we will answer in the shortest possible time. Speaking about administration which has not mastered the main tools of e-communication, it happens that people wait for several months to the answer to their email. So, speaking about the business-like manner of the public bodies, it is clear that those who do not accept e-communication as an obligatory one, they exclude themselves from the system and they subvert the systems. Within the administration, the communication as a rule is vertical, because we are all structured as a pyramid in which vertical communication most frequently goes from the up downwards, and a lesser amount of communication goes from the employees upwards. Horizontal communication is between officials who are on the same level, and diagonal communication is a most rare one. This is communication between employees of different levels. Here also the responsibility does not function as it should, because you miss the command chain and you miss the execution, the proper execution of tasks. My own experience in the city of Split has been that this pyramidal structure. At the head is the mayor. He has 2 deputies. I should say that the city of Split has just over 170,000 inhabitants. Below the deputies are heads of departments. Then we have lesser department heads, employees. The city of Split has a total of 450 employees, and additional 400 are in related institutions. So we are speaking about the first level of 450 people and around 3,000 people in various organizations linked to the city administration. This is a serious number, and official communication should be directed to them. The business communication, which is important, takes place between the employees and the clients in the public administration. The clients are those who may come from outside, like a citizen who comes to the city administration seeking any kind of answer or service. And then there are all those who in any way communicate with the city administration. The greatest challenge that we meet is the necessity of digital electronic transformation of our communication. The COVID crisis has shown us how necessary it is to adapt ourselves to the digital system, because those who were not equipped to function in that space were simply not useful to us anymore. They are used so we have normal communication which is written or through the web page and the digital one. Apart from the transformation, the other crucial important issue is being professional. Everybody working in the city administration must know the responsibility that lies on them. They must know that every job has its description of tasks, and they are charged with fulfilling those tasks, and they must have adequate knowledge to do it. So the system should be continuously educated, and we must follow the trends. Our average age in the city is over the age of 40. So if you take into account the informatic literacy of these employees, you see that they lag behind the new world, because you can digitalize the city administration, but to make it function, you must have employees who can work in such a digitalized space. What has been an additional challenge is that we have faced that a large number of employees had lower or middle education, and that a part of the most responsible jobs was delegated to people with lower educational level, who were charged with carrying out these tasks. And it is clear that it is very difficult to delegate tasks to those colleagues who do not have an adequate professional interest or appropriate behavior for taking part in this system. The system of reward and punishment has proven very bad in practice because it has given rise to trade union activities which do not, and the trade unions do not differentiate between those who work and those who don't, between the diligent ones and the lazy ones. One of the challenges that is important to us is speeding up of business processes with new communication techniques and technologies. If you have a system which answers people's emails within 3 or 6 months, then it's of no use at all. What if you have to issue a building permit or decisions about some social rights or incentives or financial contributions? You have deadlines given by law which tell you to solve this within 30 days. So the challenge of delegating tasks within the administration is a very delicate question. Speaking about external and internal communication, we have 2 levels, the official one and the public relation. Both can be seen within the context of the vertical, horizontal and diagonal dimension. External communication is the one done with external subjects or clients, and those who are involved must know the language that is used here, and this is the legal language. Speaking about the PR, this is a relatively new branch in social science, which, speaking in the context of public administration, serves to translate the legal language, the language of public legal bodies, to translate it into modern communication in order to be interesting and understandable to everybody. We must communicate in a timely manner. We must communicate with accurate information, irrespective of whether we are creating the image of an individual or city as a whole. As a rule, they lack the competences, and they failed to communicate precisely what are the tasks and functions and competencies of the city administration. In these channels of internal and external communication, which are pretty well known, it is most important to know what is strategic communication, what is the plan of the city administration, what is its proactive communication, and what it is that brings the content closer to the public space. Today, the modern channels of communication, like social networks, channels and planners, are becoming more and more channels to reach those target groups which we want to reach. Lastly, I wish to touch upon what my previous speaker has said about the transparency of the budget. For us, this is currently the main task, to do our job in a way that those information which are true are stressed. Everything that we communicate must be true and accurate, but it must also be legal, legally founded, and given in a timely manner. Lastly, it must be adapted to the subject, to the recipient of our communication, and it should be understandable to everybody. So we should get rid of the cellophane that has been enveloping us for such a long time. So much from me. This is what I wanted to tell you for now.
Evo, napokon vas i vidimo.
What I would like to show you something. This is a postcard from Split behind me. As I initially said, I'm isolated now in this new normal. We are trying through new channels of communication to somehow build up contact, not only to become part, no, we want to be to do a good job, to work together, to share our experience, and to learn something from other people's experience. Thank you to the Deputy Mayor of the city of Split, Ms. Jelena Hrgović-Tomaš, Deputy Mayor of the city of Split. It was interesting to hear what the city of Split has to say. There were some interesting ideas. And now our jingle before our panel.
Mi smo u eteru. Dobar dan svima. Evo,
hello everybody,
u
welcome
Focus Studio.
to our Focus Studio.
Na panel kojeg je trebao moderirati gospodin Holger Heibach, ali nažalost pozvalo mu je nema koronu, otišao je iz našeg studija prije nešto više od sat vremena. Nadam se da ću uspjeti uhvatiti ritam njegovih pitanja i koordinacije prije samog panela. Danas na panelu imamo, usudio bi se reći, 4 žene vizionarke, 4 žene sa jakim karakterom i 4 uporne i vrijedne
characters, they're very effortful,
kroz svoje životne pozicije i ambicije mijenjaju pozitivno okolinu koje rade i stvaraju. Sa nama je Melita Pavlek, glavna tajnica Hrvatske zajednice županije. Evo Melita, da te vide naši gledatelji.
Let's see you. Hello to everybody else, just for the beginning. Daniel told us if you feel bad, then listen to Daniel when he's introducing somebody. Well, today as well, I believe the introduction for the four of us will be brilliant. From Sarajevo, Miss Almedina Porča, the Assistant Mayor for Public Relations and Information System of the Municipality of Stari Grad. Medina. Hello, Daniel. Thank you for that great introduction, of course. Hello to everybody else. We shall stick to the instructions.
Hvala. Iz Beograda uključujemo gospođu Jelenu Parezanović. Ona je posebna savjetnica prvog potpredsjednika vlade i ministra prosvjete, nauke i tehnološkog razvoja Vlade Republike Srbije, a donedavno je radila i u Ministarstvu uprave. Gospođo Jelena, jesmo tu?
She's a special advisor to the minister. Yes, I'm here, but it's not that beautiful and sunny like in Split. It is a bit colder in Belgrade, but anyhow, I shall try to keep my smile up.
Osoba, žena koja je promijenila u jednom dijelu Hrvatsku, uvela prvu digitalizaciju što se tiče transparentnosti i katastra, dugogodišnja savjetnica i suradnica u uredu predsjednika, bivša ministrica pravosuđa Republike Hrvatske, saborska zastupnica i kandidatkinja buduća gradonačelnica grada Zagreba, nadamo se, gospođa Vesna Škare-Ožbolt.
Position of the mayor of the city of Zagreb, Ms. Vesna Škare-Ožbolt. Well, yes, that is, I'm very glad to participate at the conference. First of all, because Daniel is always full of innovations, and I'm very glad to be around him. And I'm also very glad to meet all the other ladies. Very glad that we all found the time to be together, even though I would like to meet you in person. One day Corona will be over, and definitely we will meet then in person.
Evo, naziv današnjeg panela je jako jednostavan, ali kompliciran i izazovan. Obilježje izazovi komunikacije u političkim i javnim institucijama. Ja bih evo prvo volio da se uključimo u Beograd i pitaću gospođu Parezanović na kojim načelima se treba temeljiti svaka komunikacija lokalne i regionalne samouprave.
On what principles should every communication of local and regional self-government be based on? Well, I shall speak from my experience working in the ministry and in public administration. That is something I'm in favor of, being open, being transparent, of course, to include the citizens as much as possible. That is the only principle I can work on. And that is something I'm in favor of. To create better and larger trust among the citizens must be the goal we want to achieve. And it doesn't matter how bureaucratic we are. Some people working in the administration are very arrogant. And this is a relation they have not only to the citizens but also to their colleague. Their behavior was really bad, and not many things have changed. I'm still working, they think they're working a lot, and then they get to the city administration, they want something, and they don't get anything. They don't get what they need because there is no communication. There is no PR in the city administration, and they're afraid of it. They are understanding it as something that requires from them to be open, and they just feel burdened by that. And at the end, that has led to that someone from the side told them, that is the EU. If you want to enter the EU, these are the principles you have to work upon. Thank you, Jelena. Maybe we can conclude out of that the citizens do not any longer trust the public institution. Ms. Melita Pavlik, please tell me, do you have an idea? Is it possible what kind of communication can we use to return the citizens' trust in political institutions? Well, it is not only the trust in institutions, it's the trust in everything what is part of the system. And in the last years, with this crisis and the pandemic, I think that this has changed even more. I think there are some directions we definitely have to work on. The two-way communication and high-quality public policy, that is the basis of the story. If we talk about that, we have to work on building up trust with the citizens. I have been working a lot in PR and in public administration. I believe what we are missing, what of course developed democracies like France and others have, is a clear level of professionality among people working in public administration. The colleague from Belgrade said that we have a very good relation with your associations. We know what you do. This is a very good level, a very high level up to which the administration officers are to be found and how they're educated. You know that level, and you know also the level which undergoes the influence of politics. Because we keep up to our institution, we don't change it, and until the moment we do not change it, we can speak a lot about public politics until we work that way. Have a look at the institutions who stick to that. They're only growing and believe that digitalization has never been a problem to them. Medina, while I was listening to Melita, what do you think? How can public bodies serve the citizens? What do you think? They should be serving the citizens in any way, in any case, because we are a service of the citizens, not only to provide information to them, but completely to be on their disposal. I'm speaking of local administration. And that is where I worked for the last 12 years. What the colleagues spoke about before, there are problems, definitely for those working in public administration, but in the sense whether there is a depolitization of the public administration or not. We had local elections recently, and many things were misused and abused, even here where I work. And those people have misused and abused their position for political purposes. I do agree with everything you say, that there must be a line drawn between that. Of course, the law is very clear how they are allowed to behave, but I don't think that this is respected, and I think much more, we have to work much more on that. As far as Bosnia and Herzegovina is concerned, the state civil servants are protected with law, and very often they used to say that they are protected like precious species or endangered species. I wouldn't like to go any further. Well, let's stick to what we have to do, and that is PR, and your question was definitely how to serve the citizens, public administration to serve the citizens. What I wanted to say, we're working a lot on that, and all the previous years we have worked on that, and what I'm especially glad about, that the old part of the city of Sarajevo has been recognized as very good, and we're so proud of that. On behalf of independent associations, of the initiatives of citizens, we are the most transparent community in Bosnia and Herzegovina. 72%, that is our transparency.
Gospođa Vesna, da li vi ocjenjujete da političari razumiju dovoljno važnost i ulogu odnosa s javnošću, da li dovoljno razumiju transparentnost i ko kontrolira informacije vezano za politike?
Do the political leaders at higher and local levels understand the importance of communication experts in conveying political messages? Well, that is a difficult question. Especially that who is controlling information from the side of the politicians. My impression is that the relation between public and the politicians is similar, something like a football match. The public is always playing all the time and full time. Most of the time they're very interested in everything. And politics and politicians, they're not interested all the time, even though it should be both ways. They are playing and they are interested only when they are interesting, when they have something to say or have something important to say. And they do not reply or provide answers to all the questions the public is asking. But I believe we have done a lot in this entire communication business. I can remember my first days. Back then, I was the counselor of the president, and in the 90s, there was a really awkward way to communicate because politicians were not capable or open to talk to journalists even. And they never talked to the nationals. But today they're educated and they're aware of the fact that their popularity, their power, their influence depends and is a result of how they're understood in the public and their perception in the public. There's still enough room to do something, even though I think that on behalf of the politicians, the match is not always played 100%.
Molim vas ako nam možete reći, vi imate jako dinamičnu ulogu i poziciju vašeg radnog mjesta, morate usaglasiti ne samo komunikacijske poruke, nego morate se neprestano prilagođavati 21 pogledu, 21 razmišljanju unutar Hrvatske zajednice županija. Da li su župani svjesni odnosa s javnošću, da li oni vide korist od toga, da li slušaju svoje savjetnike na tom području i da li slijede smjernice?
Follow up with the directives.
Halo, Melita?
Melita, do you hear me?
Izgubili smo...
Ja ću reći nešto što bi voljela da se izreže.
I shall say something or to please cut out if everything will be always accessible. When talking about regional self-government, you should see who are the county prefects who are there in their second or third term in office. And thanks to their colleagues, most often those are people who can listen, who have experts around them and who understand very well what PR is. And in not one moment they think that public relations is a manipulation of the public. I think that is enough. Have a look at that. The colleagues know to whom this refers to. What is specific for the Association of Counties? Do you know how many political options are at the moment here at the table? We have 21 members due to the fluctuation of various political options in the field. Today it is even 11 political options, and I have to say, when they sit at the same table, if something is not good for our county in Krapina, it is not good for Dubrovnik either. So when they lobby towards the government, it is important whose position it is. I think that they understand very well how important it is, and that actually what we used to say in this hall, out of this 21, it is Unisan. That is the way we work. Every year we know how many of our initiatives from the government is coming true. 5 years ago, this percentage has grown from 10 to 45%, which is a lot. I believe that Ms. Skare Orsbold, I know her work very well while she was politically active. I know that she knows how much that means, and a lot depends on communication, definitely. Nema tona.
Ja ću se sad uključiti, to mi je druga ljubav, ovaj voditeljski posao. Ja čujem Vesnu.
I hear Vesna. I also hear, we don't hear Daniel anymore.
Možda da mu signaliziramo da ponovi pitanje.
We have to signalize himself to repeat the question. Daniel, I didn't hear your question.
Daniel, javi se. Ja još uvijek ne čujem.
Da li možda da probate da se mutirate sviča, da probamo Daniel da se jedno zapitanje?
Da, odmutajte se. Evo, jel me sada čujete?
Now we hear each other. Yes.
Evo, htio sam, gospođa Parezanović,
Mrs. Parezanović, do you hear me?
Halo?
Mrs. Parezanović, I'm calling you.
Dobro, gospođa Jelena?
Mrs. Jelena?
Jeste tu?
Are you there?
Onda gospođo Jelena, evo baš sam pitao kakav je pogled političara, direktora koji rade u javnim upravama, institucijama, gradonačelnika na odnose s javnošću. Da li oni razumiju važnost toga? Da li su, prema vašim saznanjima, ikada bili na nekom tečaju koji se tiče komunikacija?
Concerning communication, and what are the good examples in Serbia? I can only say good words about some things. There is a greater and greater respect for people in the PR business, and the PR is being acknowledged as part of the process more and more. In order to make a certain activity successful and completed. In the period between 5, 6, 7 years, they had to face certain great crises where they sought the PR to be firefighters. So they understood Sincerely speaking, the problem in Serbia, I don't know about other countries, but the problem is on the local level and the level of the Republic, because together with the functionaries, the PR person is changing also. So it is very rare to find a person who has been following a certain institution for a longer period of time. These fluctuations within the systems mean that we always start from the beginning, and we all are always in pains.
Da ne, oprostite, što je u stvari veliki izazov, to su najbolje riješili, uvijek volim reći, u Republici Sloveniji.
In Slovenia, they solved it in the best way. They have an office for information. They do not employ political or party members, but professionals. And what is interesting, the director of this office is elected every 5 years, which means that he is escorting the old prime ministers and welcoming the new prime minister. Almedina, what is the situation and what are the practices now? In Bosnia and Herzegovina, do you engage PR agencies? Do you have budgets for that? And is this regulated by some laws or statutes? Because we know that every town has a lot to do on that field. So I think that one or two persons cannot solve all the communication challenges in the digital era. As you know, I think we spoke already. There is not a clear law with regard to that. Not only the PR, but generally the media question. We have no law on the media. Proceeding from that, coming to the PR, what the institutions are doing is forming departments, sections, whatever the level of government is, employing people who will do the PR in the name of that institution. Today, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we came to the position that every local community, speaking from the lowest one up to the state, every level has its PR departments. They have people who should be doing that, but it is questionable how these people have come to these positions and how they discharge of their duties. The key issue is what my colleagues have been speaking about, that the responsible person, the head of this institution, is gradually getting to know the importance of PR and communication with the citizens. And they should have a person whom they will trust to allow somebody to listen to that person, to allow him to direct them in the proper direction and to correct some policies. The situation is better than it was in the past years. We have been with you from the first focus conference, and we often spoke about the PR in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We see shifts toward the better. In the last elections were very turbulent. They have shown this again because the political parties have dedicated their communication strategies in a much more serious way. And they even engaged PR agencies who did complete PR. We have candidates for top positions who had PR advisors, and I saw that they escorted them on every TV appearance. They advised them, so gradually things are moving towards the better. Vesna, all the time you have been in the media focus. How do you see the media at this moment? Are they interested only in affairs, or are they interested in some positive messages which a certain politician, for instance, you are a candidate for the mayor of the city of Zagreb, are they interested to hear that? The media are always prone to incidents, if we can call it affairs, than the positive news. But it is up to the politicians to inform the public in the right sense of the word and to give these positive news. Positive news are moving the world, not negative news. We have had a situation where after Croatia entered the EU, the government decided, made a decision forbidding the ministries and bodies of state bodies to engage PR agencies for their activities. I think this was a big mistake, and it caused a lot of damage because the right information simply were not reaching the public. So the things were not presented in the best possible way. Only in 2018, so for 6 years, we have been seeking the channels of communications, and only in 2018 it was this decision was put out of force, and the ministries were allowed to engage PR agencies. Speaking of the politicians, mainly from the ruling parties, but also heads of public companies, they began to communicate in a more quality way with the help of PR agencies, and today it looks much better than it was before. Mrs. Jelena, how do you look on the engagement of PR agencies, and what is the practice in Serbia in this field? 10 years ago, I lost on a contest at a ministry because I didn't have PR, and I was very mad at them because they were using PR agencies. So for speaking from my experience, I would advise everybody to engage every kind of help they can get in communication. Whether the PR agencies, of course, they should question very well, they should screen these agencies, whether they're appropriate. Also, when you're speaking about projects, about donors, as I said, I was in the Ministry of Local Government. We got 2 million from the EU from the reform. I can say that not only that we are thankful, but we had billboards, posters, we accessed the TV, we accessed the social networks, we managed to do trainings. We have a set of journalists following us all across Serbia. So, in brief, I support, I encourage every kind of PR support. According to you, what is the biggest challenge between the public administration and the citizens? The difficulty in clarifying what we are doing. Speaking of the reform, of public reform, why is something very important in traffic, speaking about So the general problem is not only to explain within the administration that their language is difficult and that this difficult language should be communicated clearly. This is the most difficult challenge. Thank you, Jelena. Tell me, Melita, we are aware that everything is changing in our environment, but is the digital transparency, is it accepted by those who represent the citizens within the counties? Thank you for the question. I've been noting down on paper some digressions of my own, so I will touch upon what my colleagues have said. Regarding your question, I think that the pandemic and the shift to online communication has done a lot for digitalization of public administration on all levels. I could see that it took us 7 days, what previously we had to fax, now we can send a mail. So as regards our level, we have seen positive movements very quickly. Most of the colleagues have accepted that. It remains to harmonize certain legal regulation. I will briefly touch upon the agencies. Simply, you must have a view from the outside, because if you are within the same circle all the time, communication is changing so quickly. So I'm expecting from a good PR person from the inside and a good PR agency from the outside. They must deal with communication, sociology, technology, neuroscience. If you don't have all of that, you will be coming to the beginning all the time. Communications become so important that you must have a set of experts. I will tell my colleague in Belgrade, you must also copy what the others are doing to make a good product. And what I think that this storytelling is very important, using the language which the citizens want to hear. This is the biggest challenge for the period to come, and all of us will have to work on that, because I start from ourselves. If the citizens do not understand what we are doing, the problem is not with them, but the problem is with us. I would dare to say that in spite of these technologies, Sarajevo is still a city with a soul. It is a city where the people must feel the politicians. So Almedina, I want to hear in which measures are digital communications important, and in which measure is do you value this feeling that the citizens must see the mayor, shake hands with him, feel him. Both are important. However much we try to go ahead and to do digital communication, there will always be a population who is maybe not up to that standard. I'm speaking about older age groups. There will always be people who trust direct contact, eye to eye, handshaking. We are such an environment. We're not, we cannot deny this aspect of our work. Speaking about the corona pandemic, which has hit us as the rest of the world, since the beginnings, since March, when the lockdown has started, we have been very much in the field. However much we try to communicate by means of media and social networks, we had to go out in the field, talk to the people and assist them. We had situations where people were closed in their houses. including the most vulnerable social groups over the age of 65 who were not allowed to go out. There were people who could not even go to the to go to the public kitchens to collect their meals. So there were people even without family, and the local community has had a big role to play. We had teams who were going out to the field, door to door. We had a list of people whom we should visit. We were providing help, and this was the direct contact which should never be neglected, which is equally important as everything else what we are doing. I think in that period we have reacted in a very good way. Also, there was assistance to entrepreneurs and to the economic subjects. Even yesterday we were in the field. We were walking around with our mayor, with the inner city core of people, irrespective of all the epidemiological measures, keeping distance. People feel the need to come closer, to tell you something, and this is a segment which we should never neglect. Vesna, do you think that the politicians are transparent enough? Do you think that this transparency should be functional? Are all the information accessible? And according to you, what should be done to change things and in which direction? I think the politicians are transparent as much as they want. They release information selectively, those which they want. There is much space for improvement. Coming back to my first sentence, it is in the interest of the public and the interest of the politicians. It's like a football match which is played 24, the public is playing 24 hours a day and the politicians are not.
And there is still definitely plenty of space you can work with. You have mentioned that I've digitalized the land registry book. Back then I was the Minister of Justice and a politician, and I wanted to allow the citizens to have an insight into the land registry books, to have an insight from the living room. Through the internet, they were able, after we digitalized that and put all the data on the internet, they practically were able to see the data, their own data and also everybody else's data, and that was transparency. There was no necessary to get there at 6 o'clock in the morning and to queue up in line. Not to mention that there was definitely open to misuse and abuse because nobody could see that. We have raised the standards to the citizens in the transparency because it became accessible on one hand, and to us, the politicians as well, because we decided to show them how things can work in a transparent manner. And also we made our judges communicate with the public, also in public institutions. That was difficult, very difficult. When I introduced that, that was really difficult because our public wasn't used to communicate with with the administration. The media and the justice never went hand in hand. I, as a minister, as a politician, just joined them and somehow put together these two sides and said we have to become more transparent. I shall end with this sentence: politicians have to be as much as transparent. We are coming to the last set of questions, Jelena. I would like to know how do you communicate also with young people? Because young people are not very interesting. They're also moving away. They're moving away from because of politics. Is it due to bad communication? Due to them, does it exist? I think here the crisis is really huge. Even though thinking we want to stop them going away, we work a lot on it, but nevertheless, as far as communication is concerned, yes, we changed a lot in the communication because we asked the young people what they want. Yes, we worked a lot for and with the young to bring them somehow back, and we're working on the reform of their salaries, on the life standard. But actually this is a process we have to work on. We have to continue working. Melita has mentioned something very, very interesting. Public administration we cannot understand as some lazy people. Definitely it's time for education. Melita, please be so kind and explain to us how could these people who are politicians, who are managing the country, or those who are working in PR, how to educate them to become more effective? Well, my opinion is, if you've chosen to work in communication, then you have chosen to learn until the end of your life. Then, if not, then maybe you should choose something else to do. We are working on public politics for young people because at the moment they're not interested in anything more than their PC terminal. That is one part, and the state school for public administration in Croatia 2 years ago has initiated another educational program, which I believe a colleague said to introduce to them basic education. Public servants and politicians have to know when they start working as a public servant. That is from the lowest administrator or public servant up to the mayor. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to know such things. And this has to include public policies, communication, and as far as I'm concerned, it is the leadership abilities become more and more important. Leadership not only on these levels, but also on lower levels, because very often in public administration you become a leader if you're a good expert. That's not enough. Of course, you know that, but you have to manage people and tools, and then you find yourselves in the situation that you cannot do that. I like my colleagues, but I believe this is really wrong. How to be leaders and who will bring up other leaders, little leaders, and manage the world around them together with them. Medina, up to you. Al-Medina, in your opinion, what is the biggest challenge to you in your job? Let me refer to that, what I already said. I think that public administration, there should be a line drawn where policy starts and where PR is. Where communication starts on behalf of politicians and political parties and whoever is managing that. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, this is very unregulated. There is no line drawn between that. And to be honest, I don't know how could we manage that with a legal regulation, how to organize that. Because you find yourselves very often in a situation someone who is legitimately elected by the citizens, he is working, keeping his office up, and he's then again a candidate for the next term in office and doing his PR. So where is the line between what he does and what he wants to be put up for elections? That is a big challenge. How to deal with that? And of course, how to deal with the complete media world, media environment. We are often mentioning that the portals, especially, who have lost their directions, and a long time ago they've forgotten the basic norms of journalism. There is a lot of biasm. Definitely more and more politically motivated media, those which are made with this intention to do what they do. So all that are challenges in front of us. There's a lot of job to be done. Vesna, what should a politician do in order to do the right thing and to win back the trust of the citizens? Definitely, he needs to know how to keep up the communication with the public. He needs to learn how to communicate with the media. He needs to know to communicate clearly and easily. For example, his PR information and statements have to be short, clear, precise, on top quality in the media, on the portals, wherever he's communicating. So in any case, he needs education. He needs to have this basic knowledge. Everything is being recorded, and you can have a look at that again. You can see it on our YouTube channel. Now the final message. What do you have to say to communication experts, to colleagues? What to do? What are they supposed to do to provide an effectful or effortful communication? I would just like to mention three things. Transparency, because only transparency is not enough. The citizens have to be in the middle of the sphere again, and like never before, we have to do that. Jelena? I do agree, yes, and they also should be patient. They should understand that these are people, the people have their own problems. So regardless, they are in a high office or they do just an ordinary job, doesn't matter. Just trust that you will be successful and keep up the good work. Admelina, development, monitoring of all the trends, but there are many trends. And sometimes it is difficult to observe all that, and definitely we will succeed. And Daniel, I just wanted to say, you haven't prepared yourself for the panel. You managed this discussion brilliantly. Thank you. Allow me just to be brief. This is Ms. Vesna Škare-Ožbolt. We have to be simple, accessible, approachable, trustable, and make the people feel safe. Thank you, Melita. Thank you, Almedina. Thank you, Jelena. And thank you, Vesna, for participating in this panel. Dear viewers and online participants, all of you who will join us again, everybody, thank you for being here. Big thank you to all the presenters. The message from this conference is very simple. Closer to people, please join us and be with us through our social network. Please be positive and do not allow messages you hear and see around you, negative messages, that influence your way of thinking and your point of view. Be yourself, be effortful, and be on the service of the citizens. See you in the Focus Conference next year. Thank you.